Vancouver Whitecaps, who opened their round of 16 in the CONCACAF Champions Cup against CF Monterrey, bossed them off the park, but couldn't score goals. Some of the stats from last night: 21 shots attempted from Vancouver to just 7 from Monterrey. But from that 21, only 7 of them were on target. They had 15 corners. They held 66% of the possession. They won more duels. They had more successful dribbles. But the only goal came from Bilal Halbouni to cancel out a Roberto De La Rosa goal, which we are all pretty confident was offside. But we digress. The Whitecaps will head to round number 2, 1-1 in the tie, but they'll have to go down to Mexico and try to get a result off of Rayados. Jordan Wilson, from last night's game, what are your main takeaways?
I mean, I think Wheels and I and everyone praised the Vancouver Whitecaps in their heart and their spirit. That's something you can't fault, and that's something that was present from beginning to end. I also thought second half they had the legs to just keep pushing and play that game, and they probably should have scored another goal. But that's what probably stuck out to me the day after. And maybe I'm a bit more cynical because I only got 3 hours of sleep. But when I actually think about it, goals change games. And I know for me as a player, I even was talking to you guys off air, it's like as a striker, as an attacking player, sometimes you can go through the motions. But when the ball is near and around the box, the real ones come to life. And I look at this team who... There were 2 players last year who had double digits in goal contributions, and that was Brian White and Ryan Gauld. But they need another person to come in. I look at Rios yesterday that was leading the lines and up top. And the fact that there wasn't a goal, and yes, it wasn't only him, but for me, it was a great opportunity having his first start for Vancouver Whitecaps to state his claim and maybe show what he can do, to just have a bit of presence in that area. And I think that's where Vancouver Whitecaps are. They played a spirited game. They played up-tempo. They created chances, but still need some bona fide hustlers around the box that are just like, this is going to be my time. So when I look at the day after, and again, a lack of sleep might be having me a little cynical, but I think that's where they are. Getting players like that, and if you're creating chances, cool. But you need players to finish their dinner and put this game away. You're going to Monterrey now 1-1, and you look at a situation where, yeah, you played well, but you didn't do enough to maybe show for it the day after, but it was there for the taking. We went over highlights and highlights and highlights, probably had a dozen, and that they should have been goals. So I just think of it with this team, it's just finishing what they started on the pitch.
Gareth Wheeler.
Vancouver Whitecaps need another striker. There's no doubt about that. I'm not sure that Rios is. I'm not sure. I don't think that he is the complementary number 9 that you need, reliable enough to come in after Brian White to provide you what you need. I think you need more than that if you're going to be a true contender. With that being said, that was one of the best Vancouver Whitecaps performances that I can remember. Seriously, like it's right up there with the best of the best. That's how well they played. And it came in a much rotated side. 6 changes to that team for Jesper Sorensen. They got stuck in. They were winning their challenges. They were fully committed. They were difficult to handle. They were great in transition. It's just in and around the area, they couldn't finish their breakfast, lunch, or dinner. That's what cost them this tie, as well as the other big takeaway, Adam. It's how the goal was conceded. And for me, I know that people will point at VAR and there wasn't a camera angle or camera shot at that time that could have proved and overturned the decision that it was a good goal. For me, De La Rosa was in an offside position. I look at the assistant referee in moments like that. Sometimes we lean far too much on the technology. What about the accountability of the officials? We showed it in our post-match coverage that the assistant referee was not in line with the furthest man back for the Vancouver Whitecaps. We think it was Ocampo, the right back on the far side, but still, based upon the way that the shot progressed, Ocampo was well behind the play, and I just don't think the assistant referee got it right or did his job in that moment. And without VAR to come and have your back, then nothing can be reversed. So that sticks with me as well. The other negative takeaway of the night, not a big crowd, 9,613 people. This is the club right now. Generally, most seasons, you'd be like, okay, no big deal. Last season, Whitecaps fans were excellent, 7th in average attendance across Major League Soccer. And I've had people write me and say, well, it was a midweek game and there was a quick turnaround in between. And The Vancouver Canucks are playing. I don't care about the reasons why. I care about the end results. And the fact that Monterrey fans show up because Mexican fans in this country show up to see their club team play whenever they come up here north of the border. I mean, if I am a diehard Whitecaps fan, I want to see them play against one of the best teams in CONCACAF. And that number in a cavernous building on a night like that, I would like to see a little bit more. The club's for sale. That's a big deal. That story is not going anywhere. And I don't think that there's apathy. I think there's just a nervousness. There's an unknown about that situation. I'm wondering if that has a knock-on effect. I don't know. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But yeah, I'm just not buying any of those reasons. And honestly, if I was a Whitecaps fan and I missed out on a performance like that, like the team is really, really good. I want to go out and see that team play. They're honest. They're hardworking. Ryan Gauld's one of the best players, handful of players in all of Major League Soccer. That's a team that for me, that's appointment viewing right now. And I want to make sure I'm in the stadium. I'm watching on television. I'm streaming the game. I want to see this team play. That's how highly I think of them right now.
Well, the Vancouver Whitecaps are certainly going to need Ryan Gauld to try to replicate his performance next Wednesday. He was the Michelob Ultra Superior Player of the Match. 4 key passes, 1 assist, 8 shots attempted. Of course, he was everything for the Whitecaps yesterday. The hope that he can do the same at Estadio Corona. Remember that CF Monterrey are not hosting Leg 2 because of a Shakira concert, so they will be playing at the home of Santos Laguna next Wednesday. It will be a 5:30 p.m. Pacific time start, 6:30 p.m. local for the Monterrey supporters. And of course, you can catch it right here on One Soccer. Pumas and
Hips don't lie.
will await
Hips
the winner.
don't lie.
You know what else doesn't lie, Gareth? Results. Bona fide results that we can review, we can debate, we can compare and contrast all the stats. And when you look at the Whitecaps, after losing to Saprissa in the last kick of the game, they've been flawless for the most part since, with league play, with performances in Champions Cup, as you two just alluded to. I know it's early. It's our favorite term in sports. It's early, but have the Whitecaps surprised you with how they've started 2025?
Yes, a managerial change sometime comes with growing pains. I think they've hit the ground running under Jesper Sorensen. And one of his trademarks, and Jordan Wilson spoke of this, is working with young players. And I'm just looking out, the young players thus far this season look like they've taken the next step. Sebastian Berhalter's been fantastic. Pedro Vite as well. I think he's taken multiple steps forward. Ralph Priso looking like the player of old, getting stuck in, really impressed. Ngondo in the midfield is being great. Ocampo slots in for Atakubi. They don't skip a beat. Bilal Halbouni looks like he can be the real deal, contribute at center back for this team. Just go down the Jaden Nelson, a player that left the game early, but has obviously impressed in the early weeks of the season. It seems like they're comfortable in holding on to the ball a little bit more, playing a little bit more well organized, a little bit more measured. I think it's been a really, really solid start from this team. I always scoffed at the fact that the experts deemed this team 14th best in the Western Conference in MLS. I mean, it was crazy at that time. It seems even more crazy now. And I think it's out of ignorance. They're just not watching this team play. I honestly think if they can get their transfer business settled and bring in a couple more players, I think they need another number 9. If Sabi can play a role, another player in the midfield, this team is going to be a pain in the you-know-what for anyone across Major League Soccer. It's been a great start to the season for the Whitecaps.
So, Jordan, with all the praise that the Whitecaps are rightfully getting from us, from the supporters, and maybe not the American media, but that's okay. They're a Canadian MLS side, so let's do that for them. We do also have 2 more MLS sides in Canada, and one of them is CF Montreal, who the Whitecaps will play this weekend at BC Place to wrap up that homestand. With the start for Jesper Sorensen's boys, and with the start out in La Belle Province with Montreal being 0-2. Is the gap bigger than you would have expected? How far apart are these two clubs from the 3-time defending Canadian champions and objectively the second best Canadian MLS side right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that that gap might be growing. Obviously, going into the season, for me, the best MLS Canadian team is Vancouver Whitecaps, and that's resounding. That's even with a new coach coming in, just looking at the star quality and the chemistry within that squad. Sneakily, though, when I look at CF Montreal in the last match that they played against Minnesota, and you started in Vittori, you start Saliba next to in the midfield, you have Sirwa in goal, you have Waterman, you have Marshall Ruddy as well, Petrasso. You're looking at the Canadians that are littered in the squad. I think they just need a little time. One, to get that first win, to get things going, but two, because I think the fact that they went young and they're going with talented players, it will take some time, but it will pay dividends. But on the contrary, you're talking about a Vancouver Whitecaps side who has that solidity. Like they're that squad, even though Jesper Sørensen has come in and they're still trying to get to know each other. They know the players that they're going to rely on. Ali Ahmed, like Jaden Nelson knows this league and is coming in and doing bits as well. So I'll say the gap is growing, and it's a bit bigger than I imagined it to be. But again, I have a hard time sleeping on CF Montreal because of the potential that the squad could really have.
Just really quickly, I don't think the gap isn't the word that I would use. I think that the process in Vancouver is ahead of where Montreal is at right now. They have a manager that works with really good young players and did so in Columbus and Laurent Courtois. And there's a number of young, intriguing, and like Jordan said, Canadian players that are part of the CF Montreal team. I think that they can be very good. They were excellent against Atlanta in the first game of the season. Tough place to go with marquee talent featured through that Atlanta United side. A little bit of a step back in Minnesota. Something to remember, however, this happens every year for CF Montreal because of their stadium situation. They play all of these games away from home right out of the gate. It's very difficult. And they've lost 2 games on the trot. It might be 3, and that's happened before in recent years as well. So the schedule matters in terms of building continuity or not having that opportunity as well. Veroni needs to get fit. He needs to lead the line for this team. I'm still bullish on their chances. I still think that CF Montreal are a playoff team in the Eastern Conference, and they're going to surprise some people, but they're just a little bit behind where the Vancouver Whitecaps are right now.